Hi everybody, welcome back to another Conversations in American Democracy. Our friend Merrill had to excuse himself from the meeting today, so I'll be hosting for the day. We're going to start off with Kurt, who is going to continue with this constitutional conversation.
The Second Amendment, wow. Don't we want to address the Second Amendment? Why do we have all these guns?
You want me to read the amendment?
Well, you can, yeah.
Okay. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
Okay. So that along with the NRA and a compliant Congress, and we have all these extraneous gun laws, and all the way up to automatic weapons. Everybody know what an automatic weapon is? All right, so I mean, this is a weapon that does not need to be in civil society. There should be nothing like that. And the AR-15, I don't know whether you people knew that or know it, is that the Marines never wanted the AR because it was very bad fire discipline. It would just spew rounds all over the place. There's a famous battle in Vietnam in November of 1965. It was the Battle of Ia Drang, and the Army was totally overwhelmed and used up all their ammunition, and the Viet Cong went around and just shot them. You've never heard this before, I bet. No one's ever heard this.
No.
But anyway, the Marines didn't adopt the AR until about 67 or a couple years later. Because of this everybody knew it. But this is a weapon, this is a weapon that I believe should never be in civil society. It's not necessary. Of course, this was all the major shootings. This is the weapon that was used, or a variation of the AR.
They didn't adopt that as their primary battle weapon, the Army, until 1969, early 70. They were using the M14, okay? I know, I was in the service then, okay? And the Marines didn't want it, and they didn't go to the M16 until after the Army did. So your timeline is way off. Not to disparage what you were saying, but let's be accurate. Okay, the problem is that gun should never be in civilian hands.
Yes.
Plus, it's not an automatic weapon that we buy. I own two myself, and they're semi-automatic. You have to pull the trigger every time. With the ones in the military or the police, you pull the trigger. Now the new ones don't fire automatically. They have 3-round bursts, 3-round burst, 3-round burst, 3-round burst. This is all specifications. Okay, but no, the public doesn't need an AR-15 ever.
Got a
Well,
question.
yeah.
But aren't we missing the whole first 5 words of the Second Amendment? A militia.
A militia. Well,
The founding fathers and the people that, in my mind and what I've read, were reacting to the states wanting to make sure they had the ability
Adequate protection.
to have a militia within their own, because the government was not and never was designed to have a quote-unquote army. It was made up during Washington's time frame, if I remember correctly, to resolve the British. After that was done, the intent was to dissolve the army and allow each of the states, through the governors, which we see today in California, Florida, and all these other, having guards, to have the right for the governors of the states to generate and have a well-armed, what's the word,
National Guard.
a militia.
Yeah, militia.
And I commonly talk to my Second Amendment friends going, so what militia are you involved with when you have 10 guns in your
well, we
garage?
can become a militia. We can declare ourselves a militia.
The point
I got enough guns
is,
to
they
pass.
cherry pick that like anything else. So I'm just curious, Kurt, does it say everybody can have a gun? Or does it say the states can have a militia?
It says
that
It says a well-regulated.
Well, even better, well-regulated
Militia.
militia.
Yeah, because when this happened, they were occupied by the British, which is what we had to fight against.
Sure.
Yes.
So, I mean, they were
So I just
very,
wanna-
very well informed about a
Talking about
regulated
So
militia.
how did we make the leap from it being a well-regulated militia to every man for himself can have a gun? That's what I like to know.
Really?
I mean, at what
The
point?
transition, I think at the Supreme Court level, when the NRA aggressively, consistently kept fighting at the state level to question any and all restrictions. Even today in Florida, they don't want 21-year-olds. They don't want any regulation of a person to have a weapon or to carry a weapon freely.
I read
So
a
anyway.
factoid yesterday, 5% of teenage boys are carrying a weapon.
Oh my God.
5% in Florida of teenage boys are carrying a weapon
So-
today.
Arguing about the death or the ability of a weapon, because there's nothing in the Constitution that says you can't have an automatic weapon. Our government has decided to regulate that.
No, but
You
people
can't have a
talk about
bazooka, you
automatic weapons, but
I know.
the AR,
Is not.
they call it assault rifle, it's not, they're saying the A and R is an assault rifle.
Right.
Every gun is an assault weapon.
Guaranteed,
Okay?
yeah.
But who needs an automatic weapon? We don't, they don't, it's illegal to sell one.
Well, and the idea
Doesn't
that
mean you
you're,
can't
that you're
find
gonna
one
have
illegally,
20,
but.
you're gonna have 20 guns in your garage and you're safe and you're gonna protect yourself from the United States military is hilarious. You bring your AR to my M1 tank, and scary enough, that'll probably be the next thing we see
Well,
right down
actually,
the
I do have
streets.
armor piercing.
Especially when the police have them now. Police are buying tanks and
Yeah.
stuff. It's
Well, exactly.
crazy.
So, the Second Amendment is a great, in my mind, a great example of how politically the voice and power of something is small. And if people don't realize, the NRA is one of the smallest funded organizations around. They have a value of like under $5 million. I mean, Planned Parenthood is like 100 times bigger than that, and yet the NRA.
Well, they used to be bigger back when Charlton Heston was in charge.
Still never reached
They've
the
been
level.
caught in so much corruption,
Yeah.
people quit giving to them. I used to be a member.
Oh, yeah.
I won't give them a dime,
I know, but my,
because they misused the money.
I understand, but they're very surgical and they're very focused on how they are presenting to our elected officials by giving them money,
Giving
and
them
to our conservative Supreme Court, which has clarified and made some inroads into the freedom of having a weapon for a variety of reasons. And we're the only country in the world that does this. There's more guns than there are people, probably
Right.
twice as many guns as there are.
Well, you know, Admiral Yamamoto, he's famous for one thing, saying, "I'm afraid we've awakened the
Because the
sleeping
sleeping
giant."
giant.
Everybody's heard that one. But he said another one. He said it would be foolish to invade the United States. Everyone there has guns. Now, everybody has beings we have the ability to have guns. It makes it harder for our fascist government to eventually overthrow us because we can revolt.
That could go either
Either
way.
We got tanks
There may
riding
be,
down the
but
road. That's
if
gonna
we
make
didn't have,
huge
okay, like a
difference.
crime, okay, in Australia, in the urban areas of Australia, they banned guns, period. They had a big gun turnout, and they paid people, and they had pictures of stacks of guns, right? Crime went up 400% because nobody could defend themselves. But because the bad guys are gonna have guns.
Right.
If we didn't have guns, we would be subject to all sorts of bad things. The fact that we have guns keeps some sort of rule to this country. Sorry.
Okay,
Anyway,
have
the
anybody want to comment on that?
Well, the fear is,
Yeah.
what you're talking about is the fear was very big, and what was promoting the fear 150 years ago?
250 years ago.
Two.
No,
Indians
this is
in
just
the woods.
150 years ago. This is the Fugitive Slave Act It was to go after runaway slaves. This is why they wanted the people to be armed, or that's what they said, of course, at that time, because everybody was afraid of runaway slaves. So anyway, that's one of the ways that it all moved up the line, and the guns came about. I guess you're a gun lover. I'm not, but the reason why the Marines didn't want it was because there was no fire discipline at the Edrang Valley. That's the reason why the Army got clobbered. You never read that?
Yes.
You know,
And it, we disagree on what you're trying to say.
Okay, that's why
But
we
that's
have
okay.
a roundtable. But we are gonna move on, because looking at the time, Mike is gonna talk to us a little bit about what it takes to become a citizen here in the United States.
So, if you have a green card and then you have a certain time limit,
Could you roll back a little bit about what it takes to get that green card, like from the point of somebody just arriving? If you don't mind, I don't know the
well,
procedure.
you have to go to the consulate of the country that, or a country that has relations with the United States.
Okay,
And so then you go from that to where you get a green card, and you've had to answer 1.5 million questions.
so the green card comes before they get here, or after they get here?
Let's see if I can
That was my
remember.
question coming up.
Say again?
That was what I was gonna ask.
Yeah, I don't know, I never, all you hear is green card, like, how do you get that? I don't know.
Is it hard
Well,
to
you
get?
have
How long
to-
does it take to get?
Yeah, I'd like to know, yeah.
Well, you apply for the green card, I'm trying to remember here.
Okay,
And my memory is,
Or some
Okay.
of them might be a work visa you come in on,
Yeah.
and some of them may be
Yeah.
a visit, just a visitor.
yeah, or you marry a national, or a United States citizen, and so then you're able to go to the consulate of, as I say, your country, or one that has relations with the United States, and then, so you may have to fly to different capitals to take care of this, and you have to, answer all these thousands of questions, hundreds of
just to
questions.
get the green card.
Just to get the green card,
It can take 9 to 18 months,
yeah,
depending on if you're applying from within the United States or
or
outside.
outside.
you
Wow,
have to have a sponsor, right?
Well, yes, as I say, you can be
A
a,
relative.
it can be like you marry a United States citizen.
It
Right.
can be,
That's a normal
it can be
one.
employment-based, it can be family,
Yes.
relative.
Yeah.
Family-based, employment-based,
So-
or immediate relatives of US citizens.
okay.
So you,
So you don't really have to marry, you can also just have a job, or
yeah, there
have
can
a
be different
sponsor or something.
circumstances, but, just not anybody can apply.
Oh.
You have to have some reasons.
Right.
And so then, once you get the green card, then you're allowed to move into the United States. Now, you could visit before, but then you're allocated just those whatever days
Well,
that you've.
I'm no pro on this, but 90-day fiance, don't they have 90 days to come
There
here
is
and
90 days
visit?
mentioned in this, there is
Yeah.
90 days mentioned in this.
Doesn't the green card allow you to work? And that's
And-
one of the,
Yes.
you come in as a visa or a
I
student
was
or
just thinking
whatever,
about what's
you're not
different.
allowed to work
I
or
work
take
for companies.
quote unquote a job, but the
Right.
green
With the
card,
green card, you're
you're
allowed.
allowed to get.
All right,
You're
so
allowed to
first
work
it's a
and you
visa,
get
and then
social
you get a
security
green card.
number.
You paid the immigrant visa fee after you entered. It may take up to 90 days from the date you made your payment to receive your permanent resident card.
I work for
Okay.
companies who
Okay.
had green card employees.
Right.
And periodically, they would send out messages to people you remember to renew your green card status.
Oh, so you have to renew it
Yeah,
every
you have to
period?
renew it after a certain period of time.
Okay,
Especially in the tech world where I
Oh,
was
yeah,
working. And,
yeah.
we have a lot of people coming into the country on green cards to work in tech work.
yes, tech is very big from outside. Okay, so once
So
you
once you
secure
have
the
your
green card,
you have your green card, then you have like 3 years that you're to be living in the United States at that time. You're not supposed to, you could go out for a visit, but you have to be living in the United States, you have to have a permanent address. And then you apply, and it's another big deal because you have to answer all these same questions again and show all these documents. And then when you get to that point, which is many steps, then you are eligible to have a test taken that it's 100 questions for your
This is the
citizenship.
citizenship test?
So your citizenship
100
test.
questions. Wow.
And it's 100 questions, and they give you, this is, I'll pass this around, but this is, I'll pass it around afterwards. And this, so, and it gives you the answers right there. And, but when they actually give you the test, if I can remember, that it's, they only ask you 10 questions, and it's done orally. And I think you can bring a interpreter if that's necessary. But otherwise, you're asked the 10 questions, and you're allowed 4 wrong out of those 10.
Oh, okay.
So 60%.
60%,
So
that's
60%, which is kind of a
Low number, I
low
would think.
bar in my
Yeah,
estimation.
that's not even a C. So what is that, a D?
It's a D.
It's a D.
Yeah.
So the
all
answers
of
that
the
are
former
not like a
teachers?
fill in the blank, there's a specific answer that it
There's
isn't subjective in the eyes of
And,
the.
and sometimes there's
Test-
more than
tester.
one,
Proctor
there's more than one answer that
will apply.
will fly.
Okay. So it's
And-
not like a multiple choice kind
No,
of
but it's
no.
not multiple choice, which, you know, I think always improves your.
Yeah, yes.
Can you tell us all a couple of questions?
Yeah, so I was going to just read a couple of them here. They have them divided up into principles of American democracy and system of government and et cetera, and history.
Well, maybe you could
But under,
scan it through and give us a few?
yes, so what does the Constitution do? And so I'm asking anybody.
What does the Constitution do?
What does the Constitution do?
It gives us a Bill of Rights.
It regulates the way that we operate.
Yeah.
It's a framework for.
Right,
Right.
framework
Acts as a
for
guide.
establishing our rights as citizens in the country.
Acts as a guide to our laws.
So-
Do we get it right?
So the,
Can we stay? Can we stay?
kind of, sort of,
It depends on the person hearing the answer.
Right,
So would you say it's a frame of reference? Did that put your framework and your guide together? It's a frame of
A
reference.
guide to our laws.
Do you have the answer?
For us
there?
to
I think they actually
continue
use.
this
A
march
democracy.
towards a more perfect union.
Love that.
Establish justice,
Sounds like we heard that a little bit.
provide for the
Please,
constitution,
what
please
Now, what's the
share.
answer?
so
general welfare.
here's what, they give 3 answers that are all correct.
Okay.
But sets up the government, it defines the government, and it protects the basic rights
That's
of
the one,
America.
that's the
Yeah.
one I said. Protects our rights.
So
Establishes
those
and protects our
Americans,
rights.
Americans,
not persons.
not persons, Americans.
But remember, this is a test they give people that want to become American citizens. It's
Right.
not in the Constitution.
Well,
It
and-
is the citizens, it is the people in the Constitution.
Well, this is what does the Constitution do? And this is
Yeah.
one of the things.
Uh-huh. That's
And-
what we're exploring. What does the Constitution do?
And what do you call the first 10 amendments to the Constitution?
Bill of Rights.
Bill of Rights.
Right.
I think
Very
we all-
good.
We got one. We all know that one.
I was worried I'd be deported.
So here's one that I would like to bring up. What is the rule of law?
Laws that have been established by our country that we all have to follow.
That align with the framework of the Constitution.
You got me, I froze.
The
I'm
rule
like,
of law
what?
is basic laws of
You
the
hear it all the
country.
time, but what does it really mean?
So, here's the four answers that they
Oh,
give.
there's four and I got none.
What is the rule of law? Everyone must follow the law.
Yeah.
Leaders must obey the law.
Oh,
Who must obey the
that's-
law?
that's
Leaders,
Readers?
leaders.
Oh, leaders.
Talk about the
Oh.
hypocrisy.
Yeah. hello.
Government must obey the law. No one is above the law.
Oh, boy.
yeah.
No
Wow.
one is above the law.
How about,
I think
That's
I've
funny.
seen violations on all 4
Except
points.
those who choose to
And that's
be
why they're
above it.
deporting everybody.
Also known as
Because
all
they,
of the
if they
above.
have to pass
Yeah.
this test, they
Or
know the
dictator.
truth, and so they want to get them out of the country.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my God, every single one.
So,
I have a question.
yes,
This is the test to become a citizen.
Yeah.
Why does it take over 10 years for somebody to be able to take the test?
well, it shouldn't.
No, it shouldn't, but I'm curious why.
Well,
Yeah,
it's
anybody
3
got
years
an
before they
idea?
can even apply.
Well,
Bureaucracy.
they have to apply.
And it's 3 years before they let them, right? You said they have to be here for 3 years
They have
before
to
they
be
can
here
even
3 years.
apply.
That,
Oh,
at
wow.
least that's my
And that's the
understanding.
naturalization process, is this what
Yes,
we're talking about?
yes,
Yeah.
yes. Boy.
So why is
You
it
know
over
what?
10 years?
I
That's
don't
what
know. I
the
don't-
general
Well, I-
rule is, it's taking over 10 years for someone to even be eligible these days.
Maybe that's,
Well,
you
that's,
have to do it within 10 years?
you have
Oh.
to,
Maybe.
as I say, my
There's
understanding.
people
and
been
I-
here 20 years that haven't had the opportunity.
Yeah.
Maybe they didn't.
Well,
Something's wrong with the system.
do they not have the opportunity, or
Oh.
Understatement.
It's just so
or did
much.
they have the opportunity, but they just didn't complete the process?
Right.
We don't know.
Well, and there are language impediments,
Oh,
which
yeah.
are gonna slow things down.
But-
I was gonna ask you about that. They don't
significantly.
have to be fluent in English in order to
Access
take the
to
test?
lawyers.
Well, what about the Italians when they came over here? They couldn't speak English.
No. Some
So that wasn't a problem.
As I-
So language shouldn't be a
It
problem.
wasn't
I
a problem because we wanted
Isn't
the
part of it
Italians
that
to
you
come
need
over
to
too.
take
We wanted the labor,
English
didn't we?
too?
Right?
No,
I thought
not
I
really. They
was
wanted the
told that in
Irish
past. You
to
never
work
know.
on the railroad.
Was there any kind of
Okay.
And the Chinese to
additional
work on the
requirement
railroad.
to
Yeah.
learn English?
Here's what.
Vicky?
Not-
All right, wait a minute, we're getting out of hand.
Vicky,
One
not that
person
I
at a time.
remember what, let's see if I can remember what I was thinking about.
Here's what Google says about why it takes so long to become a citizen.
Oh, okay.
Becoming a citizen of the U.S. through naturalization can take a considerable amount of time, primarily due to legal requirements, processing times, and potential backlogs with the U.S. CIS. The process involves meeting eligibility criteria, completing an application, undergoing background checks, and attending an interview. Additionally, individual circumstances such as the complexity of an applicant's immigration history and the specific U.S. CIS field office processing the case can also influence the overall timeline.
What is CIS, do you know?
I don't know.
Immigrant status, something immigrant, what is CIS?
I don't know.
Citizen immigrant status.
Also in regards to English,
Department of Immigration.
I thought of that because I had a friend years ago when I lived in Maine who was from Poland, and I remember she was really smart and she was a nurse for kidney dialysis patients, and I remember that she needed to take an English course and she wanted to become an American citizen, and it says, yes, demonstrating basic English proficiency is generally a requirement for U.S. citizenship through naturalization. Applicants for naturalization typically need to demonstrate the ability to read, write, and speak basic English.
There it is.
This is assessed during the naturalization interview and test.
Well, that
There
might
it is.
answer the,
Remember her
that might,
taking
that might
English
answer the
classes.
10-year question. Why does it
It's
take
gonna
10
be
years?
an
Because you
I
have to
just
learn the
I
language.
just looked up what USCIS means.
Yeah, what is it?
It's U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services.
Right.
Yeah, well, which begs the question, if they're spending all this time and energy and you know, hope to try to become an American citizen, and they're just coming in now and snatching them
Yeah,
out.
snatching.
Right in the middle of the
Right in the
process.
middle of the process.
In the courtroom.
In the court,
It's
well, they're
cruel.
there trying to do
It's
exactly what they were asked to do.
Cruel.
It
But he
just,
has to meet the quota,
yeah,
3,000 of
for
whatever.
the prisons that he's setting
3,000
up
a day.
everywhere.
how long
Yeah.
after Trump's
A day, is it a day?
A day.
Yeah.
A day, a day, it's so scary.
I don't think they're there yet.
No.
It was-
Thank God.
Yeah.
Keep
So,
writing them.
now, as I say, 3 years is for marriage. If you're married to a U.S. citizen, then you live here for 3 years, and then you're eligible
No wonder
proceed.
why you see
But
it
being married-
dramatized as like a huge
Being married to a
celebration
US
when they
citizen
get
is
it.
no longer
Yeah.
the pathway it used to be.
Used to be.
And to answer your question, politically, the ease in which people go through the steps to become a citizen are very fluid and are changed by different administrations and the support or areas you even live in. If you're in Washington State or you're in Oregon or California, probably the ability for you to get help, to go through the processes, to become a citizen are probably more available than if you're living in Florida. No, because it's a
Tennessee.
perception
Or
of
Tennessee.
value, or Tennessee.
Yeah.
And so if you can pull up and look at the ratio and the amount of people that are becoming citizens, it can become so prohibitive, there's no need to.
Yeah, good point.
For someone who is living under the radar, and we see every day how ICE is complaining that they're having trouble finding these people, who, by the way, are experts at hiding from our government, because when you talk to some guy that's been here 30 years and isn't a citizen, and he's got grandkids and he's lived here, he's probably pretty good at driving the speed limit and obeying the laws and becoming invisible. And now we see even even your wife or somebody that's become naturalized is fearful, is now concerned when we hear our leaders saying, I'm going to deport Elon Musk, or I'm going to deport the guy in New York State because I don't like what they're doing. So we make it,
I wonder if he's going to send his wife and child back.
I don't know.
Yeah,
But
right.
being in the military, Kurt, myself, you, we know that the people that learn the game and are successful and know how to play it are the ones that succeed and get promoted and get the best of everything because they know how to play that game. Those that want to follow the rules as written don't usually make it in our government pathway. So congratulations to your wife for going through all that, and I hope that she survives the culling that's going on.
Okay, so just to bring it back, after the test, after she passes the test, then what happened?
Then it seemed like there was maybe a couple-week period, and then you go, they've checked the test and you pass. Well, I think they tell you that day that you either passed or you
Okay,
failed.
so you know.
And then, because it's, 10 questions. And if you pass all 6 of them, the first 6 answers, then you're done.
Okay.
And so, then you come back in a couple weeks, and then they have a ceremony, and then they
That's
swear.
the one where so you see the people
and
swearing
then they
in.
swear you in, yeah. And there were people from, all different countries.
Yeah, all different walks of
And in
life.
today's world, even if you look different, that's reason for ICE to pick you up.
Yeah. But,
You could be the wrong color.
yeah.
Just
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah, but it's even gone beyond that. The ones that were in the paper here locally were Polish. They looked, white as we were.
Yeah.
Right,
Or
well,
somebody says, that guy, and then
Yes.
they go get that guy.
Right.
not only that, but that mom that you're talking about, she went to Orlando to do what she was supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
She was there to report and take the appropriate
Following
step.
the law.
Following the law, and then she
And
still got
that's
scooped
done.
up.
Yeah, they
That's
could have said, okay, we know where you are, we know what you're doing. Why do they want to pay for her to be in custody?
You're paying
She-
taxes, you're
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, we know where you
responsible.
are, keep doing the things you're supposed to be doing. No, they lock her up anyway.
Yeah, locked
And she has a
They needed
family
the
and
quota.
they have to
They had a
work their
quota.
pets and-
They had a quota.
Exactly.
Okay.
No?
Bingo.
Yeah.
They want to earn that $42,000 a
So-
year increase in pay.
Anyway,
I will
Pass that around.
pass this around,
Yeah.
and everybody can look at
Take a
the,
peek, yeah.
I failed miserably.
Would you like glasses?
Okay, well,
I have
that
to have
was,
somebody buy them for me first.
thanks for sharing that. We're gonna throw to Susan, who's gonna talk about the executive orders.
Okay, sure. So, the information that I'm gonna be citing is from a website called presidencyucsb.edu. I'll be citing a table that was dated April 29th, 2025, which shows the, among other things, the number of legislative acts signed into law in the first 100 days for all presidents taking control after a change in partisan control.
Very specific.
There's a, hitting the ground running is venerable advice that is given, but and perhaps the question we need to ask ourselves is this how a leader truly becomes transformative? Building a broader coalition with effective policy delivery. So I found it interesting, the table goes from 1933 to 2025, and the two that obviously jumped out at, well, actually just jumped out at me, were 1933 and 2025. In 1933, under the column headed Public Laws and Resolutions, FDR had 86. What that means exactly, how far along in the process these were, maybe even before he came into office, I can't answer that, I don't know. He had 86 public laws and resolutions signed into law, and he had signed 94 executive orders and memoranda.
Wow, so that means almost everything went through?
So and again, I don't know if that's necessarily the connection. Like, I don't know if these necessarily are, he said, I want to do this, and then real quick in 100 days they signed this into law. I don't know if these public laws and resolutions had already been along in the process. So that's just something that I would like to kind of delve a little bit more deeply into. I started this search because it felt to myself and to other people around the table that he was coming out with an awful lot of executive orders within the first few months of his presidency, and yet we weren't really hearing about a lot of that stuff actually becoming law,
Right.
Or policy. And hope is a good thing, right? Andy Dufresne said that to Red. Hope is a good thing, and I can't help but feel sometimes with certain people that they kind of want to send us this hopeless message, to get us to quit.
Yes.
At some point, and thankfully, I don't think that that's working. In contrast to FDR in 1933, who had the 94 EOs and the 86 public laws and resolutions, in 2025, in his first 100 days, Donald Trump's administration had 184 executive orders and 5
Wow.
public laws and resolutions. Again, are they related? I don't know. I'm going to have to do a little more digging to see if I can find this. But I was just curious if anybody had anything or any feeling about what's going on with so many executive orders, so few laws, until of course this bill that just got passed. I mean, is that, my question too is, was there pushback on some of the executive orders, and was a lot of that stuff put into the bill?
A lot
Yeah.
of them were.
For example,
The
what happened?
bill might take care of a bunch of those executive orders.
Kind of fast track them through.
Fast time.
And the courts, like they've just lifted and allowed him to continue with the RIFs at the federal level.
And what about what's going on with the Department of Education? Didn't that hit a brick wall in Massachusetts? I think the state of Massachusetts filed a lawsuit, and a federal judge there a couple of months ago said, no, you cannot dismantle the federal Department of Education. You can't, slash the number of employees in that department. I'm summarizing, don't take me word for word, But I think what the judge was basically saying was, you can't slash the department by a huge percentage and then expect the department to function correctly.
Right, right.
Well, my understanding is that Congress is the lawmaker. The president is the executive, the supreme, or the judicial branch ensures the laws are followed. An executive order is a strong presidential recommendation, and that's the way I've always heard it. Not a law,
Right.
just simply something the president feels
Right.
strongly about. But all of the executive orders, and I mean, I'm a fatality because I was a federal employee until 3 months ago when Doge came in and I took the early retirement, the second one. But everybody that I worked with was scared shitless. Excuse my language. It's just the most, I'm sorry.
You're late on that book.
You're among
I
adults.
wanna look
I'm
at the
sorry.
plan.
You're among adults.
Grown-ups here.
Yeah, but it's also on camera.
But, you know,
I'm so
the
sorry.
284 executive orders were prepared in advance by the Heritage Foundation, who were implementing Project 2025,
Right.
and they are still working on that.
Yeah, they're about
We
two
are
thirds
Working their way down the list.
30% into what the Project 2025 declared.
Yeah, yeah.
What do you mean when you say 30% into?
30% of what they want to accomplish has been accomplished.
It's
And we're
even
only
more
6
than
months
that.
in.
Yeah.
It's more than that now.
That's why it's so
Yeah.
scary.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was,
And I was shouting that from the mountaintops last fall
Yeah.
when we were
Yeah,
having
it's real
hurricane
old.
season, and people would come back at me with that, no, Donald Trump is distanced from that.
Yeah.
no,
He
he said
even
he
just
knew
did
nothing
some-
about it.
Yes.
I haven't even read it.
Exactly.
That's what
But he also told
You
us,
mean
you
you lied?
will not need elections again.
Yeah,
Yes, he
Blamed
did.
it on
He said it
Biden.
flat out.
Many times.
Yeah, you blame it on
yeah,
that.
it's all his fault, right? Everything. The scary part for me is the, you know, we're coming into hurricane season and we're worried about FEMA, we're worried about being able to find out there was a hurricane and all the stuff that just happened in Texas where, you know, what's it, 89 dead now? And they could have been
More?
more than 80.
Last night was
111.
Oh, it's over 100.
It's up to 100.
Well over 100.
Over 100, and they still have 160 some, or
Missing.
170 people missing.
And who
And
are
that's
they?
from only one county.
And they can't get in
Yeah.
the rivers because of the sogginess and the obstructions and stuff like that.
Who
So-
knows where those people are buried?
So
And on
we-
the national news
Or
last
floating.
night, the man they were interviewing is walking around in his bare feet among the wreckage with his Trump hat on.
Oh, God.
So to get back a little bit what you were saying on the executive orders, which are a method that presidents can use to initially attempt to make changes prior to waiting for Congress to make those actions.
May I ask a question where you're right there? In that vein, is this, so the president kind of has a fast track for this because normal people have to have big petitions and lots of signatures and all that stuff, and it has to get to a certain threshold to then be presented to like the state legislature. He or she doesn't have to do that. They can just say, this is what, is that kind of what it is?
So I was gonna give you two examples that are fairly recent. One, he wrote, day one, the executive order on the 14th Amendment birther. It hit a roadblock with federal judges who said no, but only 22 states participated with the lawsuit that said, no, this is a violation of the Constitution. Because not every state
Disagrees with that.
disagrees with what he's trying to do.
Right.
3 days ago, since the Supreme Court ruled that, not about the 14th Amendment, but about the action of a court judge blocking nationally, the states not participating with the block have been mandated by the end of the month, in fact, I think the 27th, to start putting together a plan to put in place guidelines at all hospitals to determine the citizenship of babies being born, including here in Florida. So those states here in Florida who have said, no, that's a great EO, I think that's awesome, we're not going to fight it, are moving forward with how they're going to ascertain whether a baby born is a citizen or not. Nobody knows how that's gonna play out. That action is pushback on an emergency order. Secondly, 2 days ago, Trump wrote not an EO, but administration direction to the IRS. And it's ironic that we're sitting here at the old AU meeting to suspend the Johnson Act
Yes.
of 1954.
Yes, tax exemption.
Which was,
That was the guideline put in that said 501c3 and churches could not participate in
Political.
Oh, yes.
political
Activities.
direction. And that wasn't an EO, but that was a direction to the IRS. The IRS reports to the executive, which is Trump. So he has the authority. If you start looking to see where he's winning these cases, and unfortunately with you and you losing your federal job, in reality you work for the President of the United States. And so the Supreme Court has ruled he can hire, fire, whoever he wants within the understanding of the unions, and that gets real messy. So right now, he's ordered the IRS to no longer support a law which in
Prevents
1954, the Johnson Act that says political and religious things shall be kept apart to move forward. The intent,
I can't understand that.
well, the intent is he's going to try everything he can, knowing most of it may or may not stick in the transition that we all know is that pendulum of our political events. And I keep going back and trying to remind people of the 2018 midterm elections in his first
That's what I
term.
was thinking too.
He got slaughtered. He got no more House, no more Senate, and couldn't do anything. Now,
let's hope it happens again.
How
there
many
is a
days?
fear, there is a true fear that since he hasn't been stopped yet, to determine to establish martial law or to suspend the election for whatever reasons. I think those are kind of elements that would push people that have weapons and other issues to get a little more motivated. But almost 90%, any EO that gets through politically, that doesn't make it through to get codified by law. And I'll give you a great example. Same-sex marriages was codified by law in the Obama administration, is now the law of the land. Isn't an easy pathway to get the Supreme Court get changed. Unfortunately, Roe versus Wade and the abortion issue was never codified by law or made into law, so it was subject to getting changed. And so that's supposed to be the check and balance of a guy writing hundreds of EOs in his sleep every night because somebody's telling him to, and the check and balance of saying no. And luckily the courts, and I was just reading this morning that the Supreme Court left enough gaps, enough windows open, doors open in their decision on the judicial ability to block him, that they are successfully still generating case law to stop them. It's just at a much lower level.
Do you think that was
Where
intentional or oversight?
I think it was,
Placating the few,
Yeah.
you know,
Liberals on
I-
the
Chief
Supreme
Justice. was-
I think that, because they said multiple times, we had no intention on ruling on the constitutionality of birthright
then
citizen.
why did they?
No, because the question wasn't, the legal question in front of them, and this is the failure of our media in my mind, was we all got educated that they thought this was the court ruling on the 14th Amendment and whether it's constitutional. And that was not what made it in front of the Supreme Court. What made it in front of the Supreme Court was, can a lowly judge in Alabama get a lawsuit from one person and make a decision that affects everybody in the land. Which, by the way, every president, Democrat and Republican, have had that happen to them. Biden had it happen, he tried to cancel all student loans.
Right.
And a single judge in, I think, Florida blocked it,
Oh, yeah.
and he wasn't able to do it. So, yeah, understanding the executive order process and understand what happens and how it scares the bejesus out of all of us.
Well, they've
It's
got
time
it
to be
down.
cautious.
I mean, they are working their plan.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No doubt.
Absolutely.
Hey.
If you read Project 2025, you're gonna see that a lot of it's been implemented.
Yes, it's
It's very scary.
900,
I've read
it
it.
is, I have read the whole thing.
Yes,
It's over
very,
900
very
pages.
scary.
And there's also a website, I don't know if you've seen the website, that actually shows you line by line where they are, and they're over halfway done.
Do you
Oh, over
remember
half.
the
Over
website?
half.
Do you remember the website?
No, but I
Yeah.
will find it and I will,
Bring it
who
back.
would I
We
send it to?
talk about
Bring it next
birthrights.
week?
Yeah, bring it,
Citizenship.
just bring it next
Okay.
week.
Barron Trump was born to Melania before she was a citizen.
Right.
Does
Really?
that make Barron a citizen or a non-citizen?
Yes, because his father.
Her father was
citizen.
a citizen.
Oh.
Yeah.
So if you read through the EO specifically on what the guidelines were, it's pretty much, first of all, it has a start time frame, and everybody previous to that is not subject to this
Not
questioning
grandfathered in.
of your element, and I think
So that
it
would
was
be
like,
all of us here.
yeah. So, and the other thing is, it talks
Generation.
Until they
about,
come for the women.
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
it's a slippery slope.
I know it's on.
Coming for our shoes, they want us
Yes,
barefoot.
we'll all be
right?
of whomever. You'll be of Steve.
Of Steve.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God.
scary.
Handmaid's Tale.
All right, so what are we doing to fight this? Let's go to Vicky for
Staying
update on what's going on with 5051.
Sure. So,
Well, first of all, what is 5051?
Oh, yeah, that's good.
5051 is a grassroots movement that was born this year after the inauguration of Donald Trump. And it started out at the beginning of the year. I remember in one of these group meetings, I remember even Joanne bringing up that there was going to be a protest, and people weren't even sure if it was going to be legit or real or, what was really happening. But it was legit, it was real, and these protests happened all over the country, 50 states,
Well,
all
now, I
on
was
one
in the
day.
one that they just had. Is that the one?
Okay, so they
That was
happen
no change.
regularly now. Yes, they happen regularly now.
Okay.
And so what has happened is, there's nationwide protests, and people are standing up and speaking up for different reasons, causes, and what they believe in. So, we started a group locally. It's only on Facebook right now, so if people want to find Flagler 5051, it's on Facebook. We post in there all of the events that we have.
Okay.
And right now, at the top of the agenda is John Lewis. We're having a whole week featured on John Lewis Good Trouble. And so it starts this Sunday. We have Freedom Walk every other Sunday, so we're having a Good Trouble Freedom Walk. And what we're doing with that Freedom Walk this Sunday is causing some good trouble. I called the city of Palm Coast, I called Flagler County code enforcement people, and I asked if it's okay to use chalk on sidewalks and public places. So we're bringing chalk and we're writing positive, it's always positive. We're a peaceful movement, we're a positive movement. When we do our freedom walks, we've gotten many compliments on how we spread joy and cheer in the community on Sunday mornings, because we're not spreading nasty messages, we're spreading good messages. So for Good Trouble, this Sunday we're bringing chalk for the first time and writing along the walkway messages that we want people to think about: due process, liberty for all, justice for all. And so when people ride their bike or take their
We're all
walk,
immigrants.
any messages like that. for
John
people to
Lewis is
stop and think about.
perfect person for this to be, talk about peaceful protest, that's.
Exactly. And so, the national movements are having one day, the 17th. So our group thought, well, let's turn it into a whole week of events and feature John Lewis every single day. So we're starting that this Sunday with that Freedom Walk, thinking of John Lewis.
Where is that starting?
So that takes place at St. John's Trailhead across from the European Village. And the cool bonus about that is that's from 10 to 11 a.m. And the fun part is that there's European Village Farmers Market right across the street after. So anybody who's interested in going and seeing the vendors, the artists, Kathy sometimes is there doing readings.
I'll be there.
Yeah.
So, it's a really cool thing to go walk with, our signs and make some good trouble and then go be patrons to local workers and artists
Businesses,
and
yeah.
businesses, yeah. So that's Sunday. And then Monday, we're having a Good Trouble social. And how we chose where we're going this month, it's in the European Village. It's right next door to Mezzalunas and Red. It's gonna slip my mind at the moment.
Parrot, something like Parrot, red something. Red
It's
thing.
right when you walk in to the left, and I can look it up, but it's happening there at dinner time. And just like these meetings, you don't need to purchase anything, but come say hello. But we chose that location because we were just at Pride Fest. And we had a really wonderful time at Pride Fest. We had a great tent, met so many people. And one of the people we met was a bartender from there. And so we said, sometime we'll come in, sometime we'll pay patronage to you. And we're sticking to our word, and he was a really cool person. We enjoyed meeting, and so we're bringing a bunch of people there to say hello to him and tip him well. And something that's happening after that social, our social is from 5 to 6:30 p.m., but that night there's also trivia there. So anybody that does want to stay and do trivia, can, and you can either do it individually, or we might have a 50-51 trivia group that does it, but not necessary to stay, but so we're doing that. But there's a lot of things happening through the week, and people can find all of that out on the 50-51 Facebook page. And kind of the grand finale to the week is that I got in contact with our Congressman, Randy Fine's office. So we're not just sign waivers. Some 50-51 groups might just sign waive. There might be other groups that just sign waive, but we consider ourselves a group to take action. And we consider ourselves a group to be not complainers, but what are we going to do about it?
Proactive.
And taking action on things that we see going on. So I reached out to Randy Fine's office. A lot of people were getting nowhere, calling, emailing. I went myself. He does not have an office here right now, so I drove to Palatka. And I talked with the staffers, and
Palatka is the closest one?
we're at the moment, because his office here will be open up in August. So the closest one I drove to, and they were very helpful. And in fact, it's really important that we talk to people, because there's a lot of common ground. And even the woman working in the front of the office was saying, I said, we would like to have a peaceful meeting and talk about some things that really bother constituents in our community. And she said, oh yeah, it used to be that way years ago, didn't it? That we all talk. And she, but she was very kind.
I like black.
And she was saying, yes, we need to have conversation. And I've had people in this room say to me, why even go? They're not gonna listen. Well, I want my voice at the table. And even if they don't listen, I'll take my time to do that. To me, it's worth that effort. And so we had that meeting at the end of Good Trouble Week. That's the grand finale to Good Trouble Week. And I've also asked for them to take it a step further. And not only is a staffer there meeting with me, but she contacted me and said that she got their district representative, the district manager of all the offices, to come meet. And I said, well, they had told me that Randy Fine was visiting all of the offices when he comes back from Israel. And I said, okay, well, how about a meeting with him then? And they said, well, that's possible, let us contact Washington. And so they're going to let me know on the 21st. And when he visits all these offices, they're waiting for the occupancy here in Bunnell. And so there's a strong chance on the 21st that they're going to tell me that they're granting a meeting with Randy Fine in Bunnell when he gets back from Israel. And I have reached out to Meryl, the leader of our group. I'm allowed to bring 4 other people in with me to the meeting. And one of the first people I asked was Meryl. And he actually can't make it that day on the 21st, but I'm going to put back at him, well, when, you know, if it happens in Bunnell, can we make it on a day you can make it? Because Meryl has so many important things to say on all of our behalf. And he told me too, he said, Meryl said, Vicki, this is a big deal. He said, I want to tell you that as a leader of separation of church and state, and as a leader of many other groups that he is the president of and in charge of, he tried for 2 years, along with some other people, to get a meeting with Mike Waltz. He said, Vicki, it never happened.
That
We
was
were
Randy Fine's
persistent at it.
predecessor.
Yes. And he said, we worked at it for 2 years. He said, so having this meeting is really important. And he said, so I'm going to put it back at him. I'm going to put it back at him to please come if we have one in Bunnell, because Meryl has the wisdom and so many important things to say, and his voice should be at the table. And I hope we can work that out
Yeah,
for
that
him
would
to
be
be there.
great. Well, thank you for organizing it in the first place. You do such an amazing job.
Well, thank you.
Really inspire all of us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Okay, so one real quick thing, I'm gonna throw to Mark for local government, but we don't really have a lot of time. Anything real important on the table we should know about this week?
Just pay attention, budget. Had a workshop last night, have another one next Tuesday. They're happily spending all of your money. Some things you probably aren't gonna like.
Yeah, and cuts.
So-
I know they're making a lot of cuts.
Yeah,
Like what?
No, the city's not.
We're not gonna like what?
So Flagler, I asked the city to step in and save the library. They said they're talking to the county. I asked the city to save the aquatic center. They said they're trying to hand that off to the YMCA.
That's
Yet,
I've heard
every budget that was presented last night had no less than a 7 to 8% increase in their 2025, 2026 budget. Sadly, the school board knows they have a budget problems. They just had a meeting yesterday. The county, Flagler County, knows they have a budget issue. They're looking for cuts through multiple groups. But Palm Coast seems to think it's raining money. They're projecting huge incomes from home sales and property taxes. I don't know about you, my property's worth quite a bit less than it was last year. And it was informed there were 2,600 homes on the market in Palm Coast, Flagler County.
2,600.
2 years saturated amount of things for sale.
And that's not even probably including the ones that are still being built.
Yeah.
The only ones I see are
Going
getting
up
built are
everywhere.
the infill lots that are around your neighbors. Most of the larger building sites that I've seen out are either building show homes or potential homes that have no buyers in them that they hope to buy at a reduced
Or
rate.
rent.
At a reduced rate.
So
or
homes are
rent.
not selling and yet these developers continue to rip out trees, the woods and the trees. and
Well, they don't
the
have to
trees
pay fees or
Impact fees.
impact fees or anything until they actually pour a
Okay.
slab.
But now,
So-
over in Palm, several
Heating up the
Palms,
county.
they got several home builders. They're building them up, and I ride my bike through there, and they're getting residents in there quick.
Well,
So
I
they're
can just
selling.
tell you what the numbers
But,
from the real estate
but-
people that I'm talking to are saying that,
But now Tuesday,
next Tuesday.
no, this next Tuesday, the city council meeting is in the morning.
Yes,
Donna
9 a.m.
has an application in to get onto the charter amendment
Review board.
committee.
What?
But
However,
I only get to represent their district.
each council member gets to pick their own personal.
Right.
So Sullivan probably won't, he's probably already got a buddy of his
Probably won't get it.
selected, so she
Right.
probably won't make it, but she is up for it.
And that,
And so is Al. He's put his name in the hat, you know.
have you been,
It's
go
all
ahead.
right.
And you have
Right.
too as well.
Yeah.
So.
And
Which district do you in?
to be aware, there,
Two, maybe?
Two?
Yeah.
Your district? Two. Two? Oh, you guys are against each other.
so, but to bring that up, they've also opened up and started 2 more boards, a citizens board and another board in which they're looking for applicants. You can go on the website,
What are these boards for?
well, just for doing reviews and processes that are available. I pulled up they want 2 things. It's for a 4-year position for a voluntary board.
Yeah, that's
Made no
what- No, it's
sense.
2 years.
And, well, this is 4, and you have to fill out the financial disclosure.
Yeah.
And I don't understand how that is a thing for unelected board position.
Volunteers.
And that's for the
This thing's
state of
very
Florida?
Yeah, it's required by the state.
I'm the chairman of the residential drainage committee.
Right, I know.
And
Yeah, I filled out 3 of them.
very close. I'm gonna try my best to sunset that board because we are at the end of what we can
Right.
do. And so I'm working.
And also this month, Ty Miller's doing his town hall meeting.
Which, by the
Over
way,
at
is
this-
still not on their schedule, which I think is ridiculous.
I just got a notice this morning.
Yeah,
from
they
that.
send out the notices, but it's not on the actual
Understood.
schedule.
Highly recommend people participate, go. You're allowed to talk more than 3 minutes.
Yeah,
And they'll actually.
and on any topic.
And they'll answer you, unlike going to the city.
Right, there were only
Understanding.
34 people at Teresa's,
So anyway,
the last one. We hope
Just,
to get
you
more
know,
for the next.
participate. It's your city, it's your money. There was almost no one in there last night other than a group of ladies that's fighting really hard on the Humane Society issue, which is a real issue
Real big.
that has some needs behind it. But,
Well, like the real issue of the paint colors in Palm Coast.
oh, they're gonna put that to a vote by
Yeah.
the citizens.
That's,
They're gonna put it on
So
the
they're gonna
ballot.
run an election?
Did,
well,
you
I
gonna let me know
understand,
about?
It's a yes.
Okay.
I understand it's coming back to the planning board.
Well, no, the last thing I heard was they were gonna submit it as a referendum to be put on the 26th
Well, I know,
election.
I know what'll happen. Any color's gonna go.
Anyway,
People will vote for it.
so anyway, that's all I got. Pay attention.
Okay, so we're gonna wrap up now. Thanks everybody for stepping in to listen, and thanks everybody for participating, and we'll catch you next time.